All right, raise your hand if you're still working. Okay, yeah, 4 minutes. All right, 1 minute warning, gentlemen. 1 minute warning. Are you done, Benedict? Okay. All right, guys. Let's see here. Oh, okay. All right. I just got a chat from message from one of you saying that you haven't been able to find quiz 3 on assignments, and that's because I haven't put it up yet. So I will put that up maybe at the break, and then you guys can upload those. Thank you for that. Samuel, before you came in, I said that there was a death in our church this last week, so I've been taken up with a lot of grief counseling, and I'm actually going to the funeral tonight. So I have not had time to grade your quiz 2, or put up the quiz 3, but I will do that. I will do that soon. All right, let me stop sharing here. There we go. That's better. All right. All right, guys, before we get into our lesson today, any questions about homework, any questions about anything that we covered in the previous chapters?
I just needed a clarification about bound and unbound. I've got in my notes with aspect, there are 2 kinds, but then under aspect I have unbound, perfective, and stative. or
Okay, so
imperfective, perfective, and stated.
yeah, so I gave you two different labels for how to understand perfective and imperfective. So you could either say perfective and imperfective, or you could say bound and unbound. So perfective and bound are the same thing, and imperfective and unbound are the same thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's how I had it, but where does stated fit if there are only two kinds of aspect?
Well, if I said if I said there's only two kinds of aspect, then that was uncareful. There's actually stative is another way to think about aspect. And if I so I didn't explain this in the parade example. So the parade example, we talked about the guy who's sitting on the sidewalk watching it as it goes by. That's imperfective, that's unbound. And then the guy who's up in the helicopter watching the beginning and the end, that's bound, that's perfective. But then the stative would be, let's say that the parade is done and you're standing in the street, okay? You know that it's done and you're presently experiencing the effects of it being done. That would be stative. So there's really three different ways to think about it. So I apologize if I only said two. So just to review here, perfective or bound, imperfective and unbound, or stative. Okay.
Thank you. And so the stative would go with aorist?
No, the aorist would go with the perfective or bound. You look at, I'm glad you brought this up. Look at page, let's see here. We're going to go to, all right. We're in chapter 4. We're going to look at page 41. So on page 41, you see the three aspects: imperfect aspect, or once again, unbound. And that is going to cover the present and imperfective tense. And then perfective aspect. And if I were you, unless you're wanting to sell your textbook later, I would just write all up in your textbook. I would just write bound right next to perfective. I'd write unbound next to imperfective. But notice in the perfective, it's the aorist tense. And by the way, add this. I would add to the perfective tense, the future tenses, excuse me, the perfective aspect, the future tense. Now, you're gonna, if you do some digging, some of you will, that's great. I commend you for it. You do some digging and you find some scholars that disagree with that. Don't be surprised. It's an ongoing debate in critical circles or scholarly circles. Dan Wallace, for example, in his Greek Grammar Beyond the Basics, this is a wonderful resource. If you don't have it, you should get it. He argues that the future tense should go in the perfective aspect. I tend to agree with him. When you get into studies on aspect theory, it tends to get a little esoteric and mystical. But for what it's worth, in an introductory Greek class, just since I'm writing the tests and you're taking them, just include future tense in perfective aspect. And then the stative aspect is going to be perfect and pluperfect tenses. Okay.
I have one question.
Yeah.
About the quiz. I saw for erketai that it was labeled already as medial passive, but I would have labeled that as middle, just middle only. And
why would you?
Because of the examples in the book. They label it as middle only, and then they only use the middle passive distinction for verbs that can be both active and middle passive.
Yeah. So we're actually going to talk about that today when we get into verbs and how they function, what endings they could take on. But what I said last time, which is different than what the textbook is laying out, is that what I want you guys to do in a verb that has these endings, my, sai, tai, ame, atha, os, ontai, et cetera, is instead of having to distinguish whether it's middle or passive, to just put the label mediopassive. So think of it as a catch-all for all those things. Now, once you label it that, you can descend down from there and say, well, this is functioning in this particular text with a middle voice, or this is functioning with the passive voice. That's fine. But what I'm getting at by labeling this category as mediopassive is it takes endings that are common to both middle and passive voices. So once again, I'm following my mentors, my professor, Peter Gentry, in making this designation, which, by the way, I think at least Ben Merkel, who is one of the authors of this textbook, he probably said under Gentry, but for whatever reason, he chose not to go that way, and that's fine. So to answer your question, Samuel, it's a unique thing that I'm having you guys do, and it's not following the textbook. Okay.
So I'll just go MP on all those.
MP. Yep. Now we're going to make a few qualifications to that in this lesson, but we'll get there. All right, these are good questions.
If I go, I'm sorry, if I go to assignments to upload the quiz, I don't see the slot for. Is that what you said you were gonna do?
Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
That's okay.
I misunderstood. Sorry.
I do the same thing to my wife all the time. She's telling me something. I'm like, what did you just say?
Hey, me too.
She'll say, you're not even listening to me, are you? And I'll be like, no, I'm listening. She's like, what did you say? I'm like, all right, I'm not listening.
I've also I've just sent it to you by email because I completely forgot. I went back to the first lesson.
That's okay. I love deleting emails, so I'll just delete that right away. And at the break, you can upload it. All right, these are good questions. Any other questions?
Question for you. So maybe I'm wrong because I'm looking at the translate part of the quiz, and the pistues and esteem seem like they're two different number in person, but I could be wrong. I mean, I can tell you how I translated it just in case. You know,
let me pull up the quiz. Let's see, quiz number 3. All right, what are you referring to? Say it again.
So the pistues in the beginning, and then you got pistues, rt, base, esteem, or esteem, or theos. So I'm thinking the esteem is the third person for the singular. So it would be he or she is. But then the pistues seems like this the second person of the present active indicative. Is that right? Or am I?
Maybe I'm missing something. I don't see pistues anywhere on this quiz. Are you on the right quiz?
Yeah, so that's translate. The 3 points at the bottom on the back of the quiz, page 2.
Oh, I see. At the bottom, second page. Okay, I see pistues. And I'm sorry, one more time. What is your question?
No, I was saying, so it seems like the pistues is in the second person singular, and then the esteem is in the third person singular. Am I wrong? Or?
No, that's right. That's right.
Okay, so then I translated it as he or she is believing, but I don't know because I was confused with the pistues and the esteem. Like I didn't know which one to go with. Was it the third person or was it the second person singular?
All right, this is fun. This is fun. Let's do this. Let's do this. All right. Let me share screen here. Let's go desktop 3. No, let's go here, give me a second. Let me blow this up. Boom, boom, boom. That's a good question. That's a good translation question. This was one of your homework exercises, by the way. I try to pick ones that are homework exercises. That way it's something that you've dealt with. All right. Boosh. All right, let's go there. All right, does everybody see that? Yeah, okay. All right, so when you come to a sentence, as an English speaker, the first thing I want to do is I want to find the subject. Okay. Now, the problem here is that what does hati mean? Somebody tell me.
Because.
That since because. Okay. That since because. So if I say something like he thinks that, okay, in the sentence he thinks, he is the subject, thinks is the verb, but then that, if I were sentence diagramming, is going to take me up on another plane, and that's going to be a separate thought. Okay, it's going to be a dependent sentence. Okay, so you have independent sentences and then dependent sentences. So he thinks that, and then in that dependent sentence, you're going to have another subject and another verb, and not always another verb, but you're going to have another subject. That's what's going on here. There's two layers to this, and there's two subjects. Okay, so why don't we just start with this verb? Okay, Alan, I want you to parse that for me, conjugate it for me. What's the lexical form?
Pistuo.
Pistuo, which means what?
Believing.
Okay, I believe. I believe. Now I want you to conjugate it for me.
So present, active, indicative, and then it would be second person singular.
Good. So what it translated, what is that?
Second person would be he. Well, you are believing.
You are believing, or you believe. You could do either one. Yeah, whether you want to bring, if you said you are believing, you're intentionally trying to bring out the progressive nature of it. If you say you believe, it's just kind of a straight, standard, straightforward present tense. Let's just go with you believe. So you believe. Now, Alan, what? You believe what? That. Now, at this point, you're going to that second layer on the sentence diagramming, and he is going to explain his belief. Now, what is that belief? So this, you don't know this word, but it's one. Now, in this sentence right here, which is the dependent clause, what is the subject?
Theos. Theos.
And how do you know that?
Because of the fact that the ending is nominative.
Yeah, it's nominative. That's right. So the case, we say the case is nominative, and nominative is the subject. And there's two ways I know that. Number one, the nominative ending, okay, Omicron sigma, really sigma, and then the definite article, ha, that's the nominative singular definite article. So God is the subject. So you believe that, independent or a dependent clause, God, and then what is this? Estin.
That's the present indicative of I, me, but in the third person singular.
Yeah. So how would you translate that?
Is, or he is, or she is.
He is. So you believe that. So translate the sentence for me.
You believe that God is one.
That's exactly right. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't. In that, I got confused with the esteem. I didn't lump it with the other part. I just had it in the first part.
Yeah. Okay. Does that make sense now?
Yes, it does.
Good. That's a great question. Excellent. All right. Good. Any other questions?
How would it be? How would you say just change the dependent clause there to that there is but one God? Because that. How do you kind of there is in French? It's very easy. It's all one, but there is quite complicated. Well, not complicated.
There is. I'm thinking. Okay. So, well, I'm thinking, give me a second. You're asking me to put together a different Greek construction, and I'm trying to think through that right now. It would have the near demonstrative relative pronoun, okay, there, in conjunction with estin. That's one way to do it. There's probably a few other ways to do it. But if your question is there a way in Koine Greek to talk about the existence of God? There is a God. Yes, you could do that. That's not exactly what this is saying though here. This is clear without that demonstrative pronoun, that relative demonstrative pronoun. The subject is God. So I'm going to put that, if I'm thinking in English, right? I'm going to put that on the left hand of the screen. I'm trying to look at from where you guys are looking. So that's God, that's the subject, and then the verb in the middle, and then God is one. And so one here, even though this haste cannot be declined because it's, well, no, it can be declined. That's in the nominative case. So you have theos in the nominative case, and then a description of him in the nominative case. And what is that called? Does anybody remember?
Predicate nominative.
Predicate nominative. Another way to say it is subject complement. Okay. So what you're saying is both entities on either side of that verb are talking about the same thing. So you say, I am he, not I am him. Him is the accusative, he is the subject. So it would be in the nominative. So to answer your question, yeah, there's a way to do that, but that's not what this is doing here. And no, I don't know of any translation. I'm just curious now. What is this, James 2:19? I wonder if any translation renders it that way. I don't think, I'm not familiar with it, and I obviously don't have every single translation possible on my Bible works here, but
It does convey a different meaning, doesn't it? There is but
yeah,
one God, and God
the
is
NIV,
one.
the NIV translates it that way. You believe that there is one God. The King Jimmy translates it that way. Thou believest that there is one God. So I mean, you could, but I would say that that's not the common way that you would do it. When you get into further syntax and grammar, you find we use these terms marked and unmarked. Unmarked is a typical way of conveying an idea that is just kind of standard stock Greek. That's how you do it. But then there are what they call unmarked ways to convey a term that are out of the ordinary ways to say it. And there's reasons why the author does that, because they're flagging something very important to you. Now, that's not going on here. He's just saying God is one. But anyways, I mean, it's a fun little tangent. You could definitely translate it that there is one God.
I only translated it that way because I got it wrong. But I was just interested.
So you got skin in the game. That's what you're saying. I get it. That's fair. All right. Any other questions? All right. Before we get into our actual lesson today, I want you to turn in your textbooks to the exercises in chapter 5. So that's going to be page 59. All right, is everybody there? All right, Benedict, I want you to take under B, parsing, I want you to take number 9, and I want you to parse it for me. Now, when I say parse, that includes the lexical form and then all the requisite parts, okay? So number 9. First read it and then parse it. Benedict, I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
That's because I was on mute.
All right. Very logical. All right, number 9. Take number 9.
Krinomai. I think
Say
that is the
Okay, go ahead.
Krinomai, and I think that is the lexical form.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, it's confusing, but the lexical form is actually krino. But go ahead. Go ahead.
What?
Now parse it.
Yeah, sure. Present tense.
Mm-hmm.
A medial passive ending.
Good. Good. Medial passive voice.
Yeah, medial passive voice, indicative mood. A third person singular.
Is it the third?
Krinomai. I'll have to look in my notes. Somewhere. Cannot find.
Remember this? Mai Sai Tai. Mai Sai Tai. Sounds like an Asian mixed drink, right? Mai Sai
First
Tai.
person.
Yeah, it's the first person. That's right.
First person singular. And could I ask them why that isn't the lexical form? I'm sure you will have said it before.
Well, yeah, this is where it gets frustrating because we're actually going to talk about this today. There are forms that take there are forms that look like this that have this ending as the personal ending, even though the lexical form is krino. Okay. And then there are other forms that have a lexical form that is krinomai. I'll give you an example. One is paruo. Go, come, to go about, to distant, to go on a journey, etc. Now, if you look up paruo in BDAG, second version, it'll have this as the lexical meaning, or excuse me, the lexical form. But then it'll go on to say that in our literature, it only comes up as paruamai. Okay. So some scholars would say, well, then the lexical form is paruamai, and others would say, well, because you need to be able to figure out morphology and how things are changing, you should begin with paruo and then see how it changes from there. That's why I wouldn't ding you on something like that, because it's really confusing. It's just really confusing. The more you get into Greek and the more you start looking at the lexicon, you will start knowing that certain words have a lexical form with the medial passive endings. And amai is a medial passive ending. O is a what ending?
Present active indicative.
It's an active ending. Yeah. Yeah, it is an indicative, yes, but it's an active ending. Okay, so I am not satisfied with that answer, but that's the best answer I can give you at this point. Okay.
Is that then are they then irregular?
Paruamai is not irregular.
The first person singular as their lexical form.
No, irregular refers to verbs that in their morphology don't follow don't conform. We're actually going to talk about that today. I think the way you're using irregular is, well, let me just put it this way. When you put together a lexicon, you talk about lexicography, okay, lexicology, the study of lexicography. You're thinking about words that are in the range of literature that you're studying, okay? So for example, this is the Greek and English lexicon of the New Testament and other early Christian literature. So it is only going to consider verbs and nouns or any part of speech within that literature. So if there is no paruo in that literature, then, you know, they're not going to see it as a lexical form. And in that literature, paruamai, well, paru, just take the stem, is always used with the amai endings in the present tense. It's never used, well, you never see paru o. Let me put it that way. First singular, paru o. Okay. So
So we should be quite glad you're not a purist.
purist.
Otherwise, the exams might be quite hard.
Well, no, I mean, teaching language is hard because you can't say everything all at once. That's the hard thing about teaching linguistics is you'll overwhelm your students. And so we give you basic ideas and then we give exceptions later. So, all right. So anyways, coming back to it, good job. Let's go with David Bain. Take number 10. Read the word and then parse it.
Auguste. It's from Ago. Just a moment, please.
Mm-hmm.
Second person plural, present, medial, passive, indicative. Y'all lead.
All right. Did you say present? Did I hear you say present?
Yes.
Okay. So here's what I want you to do. Since it's a medial passive, I want you to translate this in the middle voice.
Y'all, okay. Y'all are leading yourselves. How would I?
Yeah, that'd be fine. Y'all are leading yourselves or leading for yourselves or something like that. Great. Excellent. All right, let's move to translation. C. Let's take Samuel. I want you to read number 8 and then translate it.
Ha huios tu anthropu.
All right, let's stop.
Hupage.
Try the first 2 words again.
Ha huios.
Huios. That
Oh,
omicron is a short O. All right, go ahead.
yeah. Sorry, I forget I have to speak like an American.
Yes, you do.
Okay. Ha huios tu anthropu hupage kathos gegratai. Okay, yeah.
Gegraptai.
Gegraptai.
Good. All right, go ahead and translate it.
The Son of Man, he departs just as it is written. As it is written, the Son of Man departs, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, that would be better. Well, what I'm saying is in the first time you said the Son of Man, he departs. So similar to Spanish, where you have the third person singular bound up in the conjugated verb, you don't need to add he in addition to that, right? Because it assumes it. So when you have the subject spelled out, which here is the Son of Man, you don't need to be redundant and say he again, right? So you would just say the Son of Man departs or the Son of Man is departing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, good. Let's go. Julius, let's have you do number 4. Go ahead and read it and then translate it.
Okay. Ha de Jesus apokrinetai autois.
Okay.
All right. And but and Christ is answering them, and Christ answered them.
Is Jesus Christ or is it Jesus?
Jesus. Sorry. Every time I look at Jesus, I think Christ.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But Jesus, what?
But Jesus, etai, so apokrinetai, is answering them.
Good. Yeah, you can do that. Is answering them or answers them. All right, guys. Let's take a break and come back in 5, okay? The recording. Oh well. All right. Let's take a break. We'll come back in 5 minutes. All righty then. All right, we're back on record. Good to go. For everybody to show back up. Thank you for your patience, gentlemen. 3-hour classes are brutal, man. They are brutal. When I had Dr. Fuller at Southern Seminary, he would have 3-hour classes, but he would never take breaks. He'd never take breaks. And I remember asking him, raising my hand. I wanted to ask him a question. And then I thought, you know what, I don't want to ask this question because I don't want to get into it with them in front of the students. I said, oh, never mind. I'll just ask you in the break. He's all, oh, there ain't no breaks in this class. The only thing we break is legs. So anyways, that was Dr. Fuller. And these 3-hour classes are like breaking legs sometimes. So thank you for your patience. All right. Is Benedict there? Benedict, I don't see you. And Alan, I don't see you. Oh, there's Benedict. And Alan or Alen. Alen, is that right? Alen?
Close.
All right. Alan. Alan. No, never mind. I give up. All right. I'll just call you Alan. All right, let's look at chapter 7. Let's go ahead and share screen here. All right. All right, contract verbs. It's about to get real. Morphology and paradigms. Now, a contract verb is a verb whose stem ends in alpha, epsilon, or omicron. And the long vowels iota and upsilon are unaffected. Okay, so the contraction occurs when one of these short vowels comes into contact with the connecting vowel from the ending. Now, I've talked about this last time, we have contract words in English. Don't is it's a contraction. And it's from do and not. We smush them together, we put an apostrophe, we get the word don't, okay? Greek words have the same thing. And what this chapter is unpacking for you is the mechanics, the details, the fine print, if you will, of how it works. And it's very important for you to know how it works, once again, because you're not going to recognize some words unless you know how contract verbs morph. Okay, so once again, contract verbs are verbs that end, whose stem ends in alpha, epsilon, and omicron. Poi e. What do we do when the ending is ete? So we have an epsilon and an epsilon. Comes with 2 epsilons. What does that go to? Poiete. Now remember what I said, when you have this collision, when you have this crash, you are going to have a circumflex, and that's like I don't know, a sign or a mark that some type of contractual collision has taken place. All right, so moving on. Here are alpha contract verbs. Now, when you have an alpha and it comes into contact with either an epsilon or an eta, it goes to alpha, okay? You have an alpha, comes into contact with the diphthong, epsilon, iota, or the eta with the iota subscript, it goes to alpha subscript. When you have an alpha that comes into contact with an omicron or the diphthong u or an omega, it goes to an omega. Now, let me give you a general principle. Whenever you have an omega in combination with just about anything, the omega always wins, okay? The omega is like the ultimate trump card. So just keep that in mind. Think of the omega as the trump card, and it'll help you when you're working through these contract relationships. Epsilon contract verbs, when you have an epsilon that comes into contact with Another epsilon, or the diphthong epsilon iota, you get epsilon iota, okay? I like to think of this rule as kind of the redundancy rule, all right? When you have an epsilon with an epsilon iota, just think, well, this and this is redundant, or this is redundant, or this is redundant because we already have one. So let's drop one out, and that's where you get the epsilon iota. Epsilon together with the eta gives you an eta. Epsilon together with the eta subscript gives you an eta subscript. Epsilon with the omicron and omicron upsilon diphthong combination gives you omicron upsilon. And the eta with the omega is going to give you the omega, because remember, the omega is the trump card. It's always going to win. Okay. Let's see here. Omicron contract verbs. When you have an omicron with an epsilon or an omicron or omicron upsilon, you're going to get the diphthong omicron upsilon. When you have an omicron with an epsilon iota or an eta subscript, you're going to get an oi. So Plummer had some interesting mnemonics for this. I don't know if you got a chance to watch the video or not. Plummer does a really good job trying to help certain ideas stick. So the way he did this is he talked about a sitcom in the 70s called 8 is Enough. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. It was about a family that had 8 kids, okay? So he said, if on TV you watch 8, EI, 8 is enough, you get oily kids, OILY, oily kids. So on TV, 8 is enough, oily kids. Or on TV, 8 from eta gives you oily kids. Now, if that works for you, go for it. Again, the crazier and the more insane, the better. He did another one with this one where he said, you get omicron and epsilon. What did he say? I'm trying to remember. No, that's with alpha. Never mind. All right, omicron and eta and omega, you get omega. Okay. So contract verbs are common in the New Testament, and epsilon contract verbs occur the most often, about 700 times. Now, there's a lot of different ways, guys, that grammarians try to help you to get this. This is something that I think Rodney Decker put together. I think that Bill Mounce has something similar in his Morphology of Biblical Greek, but Bill Mounce also gives us these basically 7 rules that you find on page 73 in your book. And those are the ones that we just went over, okay? But we're going to talk about a few more. In what tenses does the contraction occur? Well, these contractions only occur in the present and the imperfect verbs. This is because other tenses like the future, the aorist, the perfect add a consonant to the end of the stem, and that breaks up the vowels. So you don't have 2 vowels coming in contact with each other. You have a consonant that comes in the middle. Now, for some of you that are following, some of you astute students are saying, now, wait a minute. What do you mean if a consonant sigma comes between 2 vowels? If a consonant sigma comes between 2 vowels, then the intervocalic sigma rule kicks in and it drops out and the 2 vowels come together and they contract. Yes, generally speaking, that's the case, but you're going to have the future case, the future tense that's going to put an infix of sigma, okay? And that's going to stay there. That is an exception to the intervocalic sigma rule because that has to be there to indicate that it's a future verb. So there are some exceptions, but when you have a consonant between 2 vowels, there's no contraction that takes place. So this is typically going to happen in the present and imperfect tenses. So like the verb kaleo. You have the epsilon sigma goes to ace, and you get kaleses. Kaleses. Oh, come back. Kaleses. Now, I wish I wouldn't have put this in here because this is going to confuse you. This is what I was talking about, the aorist, excuse me, the future. You're putting in this infix that in the same way that the augment in the imperfect encodes past tense, the sigma in the future encodes future tense. But when you have this, the E and the E don't come together, and so you don't have a contraction, right? All right, accents in contract verbs. Present tense contract verbs are accented with a circumflex over the syllable where the contraction has occurred. Non-contract verbs do not have the circumflex. We already talked about that. The poiete is where two different vowels came together. All right. So here is the epsilon sim. So remember, we're in this chapter, guys, we're not looking at any different verbal form, any different tenses. We're just looking at how these vowels react when they come together, okay? So in the present tense, poieo, we have poio, poies, poie, poiumen, poiete, and poiusin, okay? The lexical form is poieo. That's an uncontracted artificial form that you're never going to see in the New Testament. So you'll never see it, but it's given so that you can determine what paradigm a particular verb will follow. All right, so I want to come back to these. Here, let me well, let's do it this way. Turn to page 73 in your book. That's probably an easier way to do this. Let's turn to page 73 in your book. I want to do a little practice. So I'm going to switch screens here. All right. All right, so let's do a little practice with this, okay? So let's look at, you got page 73 open. You're looking at all these different contract vowel rules. I want to look first at the contract vowel plus the diphthong at the beginning of a verb's personal ending, these two rules, okay? So if the contract vowel and the first vowel of the diphthong are the same, they simplify. This is the redundancy that I told you about. One of the double letters drops out. So epsilon plus epsilon iota yields epsilon iota, or omicron plus omicron upsilon yields omicron upsilon. But secondly, if the contract vowel and the first vowel of the diphthong are different, they contract. If the second vowel of the diphthong is an iota, it subscripts if possible. If it is an upsilon, it drops out. So epsilon plus omicron upsilon is u, and alpha plus epsilon iota equals alpha with iota subscript. So here's the frustrating part, like who's going to memorize all these? You're not going to go and memorize all these relationships. So it's more that you get a sense of it, okay? It's more that you get a sense of it. And it's better, instead of trying to memorize them, to just take some test cases and work through them. So that's what we're going to do. All right, so let's take poieo. Once again, that is the quote unquote lexical form. You're never going to see it. because of what these endings and these connecting vowels, when they come into contact with this, are going to do. Okay, so let's take let's take the stem. Let's take the stem. The stem is poi e. Okay. And then we're going to add the ending of omega, right? So what happens when I get an epsilon and an omega? Well, this one's easy. Which one wins out? The omega, because it's the omega rule. The omega is the trump card. So that leaves me with poi o with a circumflex, right? And you could see that on, let's see, which one is it? Does he have it on here? No, he doesn't have it on here. Yeah, there it is. It's on page 73. Poi o, first person singular. All right, let's do another one. Let's do poi e. There's your stem. Really, we know that this is probably the connecting vowel, but then we want to put on the ending of s. Okay. Well, epsilon plus epsilon, what do the rules say? Turns into a what?
Epsilon iota.
That's right. Poi ace. And then the circumflex is there to tell you that there was a collision. Similarly with the third person singular. Come back to my basically your stem, if you will. And then we're going to add the third person singular, which is o ace a, right? O ace a. Okay. So this plus this, epsilon plus epsilon iota. Well, this is the redundancy rule, right? We've already got one of these. So let's drop that out. And that leaves us with epsilon iota and a contract or a circumflex to show us that there was a collision. All right, let's do first person plural. Poi a, okay. Plus, what's the first person plural ending?
A.
Amen. Good.
Oh, first plural.
First person plural, right? Amen. So epsilon plus omicron, what's that?
Omicron upsilon.
Omicron upsilon. And the circumflex to show that there was a collision. And on it goes. You could do the same thing over and over and over again, okay? So it would be helpful if you looked at page 73 and 74 and just got a sense of what was going on here, okay? Look at these contract vowels, these contract verbs, see how they're working, see what the change is and how it takes place, and just get a feel of it, okay? There's just really no way around it. Everybody's going to work a little bit differently. So there's going to be some people that are going to be like, I have to memorize these rules. That's fine, whatever works for you. But I would just kind of get a general idea of the rules, and then I would take one of these words like plerao on page 73 on the far right, and then I would just work through it. I would make the paradigm myself. Let's do it right now. Okay. Play rock. Sorry. All right. Now, what are the endings? Somebody tell me the endings of the present active indicative.
Oh,
ace, a.
amen eti usi.
Good. O, A. ace, A, amen, ete, usin. All right, David Bain, what does this turn into?
Omicron. I meant Omega.
There you go. There you go. What do I put on top to indicate that it's a collision?
Circumflex.
Yeah, circumflex, right? So working backwards here. Play row. All right, Samuel, what is this? What happens here?
The Omicron and Epsilon combined. Oh well, the Omicron wins. No, this is the U. Omicron Upsilon.
No,
No.
no. This is an Omicron plus epsilon iota. Omicron plus epsilon iota.
I'll have to look.
This is the 8 is enough. On
Oh,
TV,
that one,
8
okay.
is enough.
Okay.
Oily kids, right?
Yes.
Oily kids, right? So it's play Royce, okay? All right, let's go Benedict. Omicron plus A.
Omicron iota
Omicron iota, okay?
with a little hat on the eye.
A little hat, okay, that'll work. A little hat called circumflex. Okay. Good. All right, Alan. What's going on here? Alan?
Yeah. 2 Omicrons becoming an Omega.
2 Omicrons. No. No. 2 Omicrons turn into what?
I'm not sure. Let me see. Omicrons. Oh, oops.
Ooh, there you go.
Right.
Oomen. All right, good. Julius, what's going on here?
Omicron plus epsilon. That's going to be Omicron iota.
Not iota.
Not iota. Omicron.
This rule. What? Say it again.
Go ahead.
I said say it again.
I was about to say Omicron upsilon.
Yes, that's right. It's the same rule as this one up here.
The one above.
It's contract rule number 1 on page 73.
I was second guessing myself.
I do it all the time. Okay, and then Samuel, Omicron and Omicron. We've already seen this.
Omicron Upsilon,
Mhm.
Omicron.
but with
Epsilon.
circumflex on the Upsilon.
That's right. There you go. Okay. All right. So just work through these like that, and that's going to help you to kind of solidify and hang your hat on these contract changes. But there's really no way around it, gentlemen. It's going to be foreign to you. It should be. It's a foreign language. All right. All right. Any questions before we go on that? Okay. All right, let's come back to the let's come back to our PowerPoint there. All right, let's look at the imperfect indicative of Amy. All right, so this is something that you just have to memorize. There's just really no way around it. Okay, So this is the imperfect indicative of a me. Somebody tell me what a me means.
I am.
I am, that's right. That's right, to be, I am. All right, so repeat after me. Amen.
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 Ace.
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 Ain.
Amen.
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 Ete.
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 Asan.
Asan.
Now, you know, I mean, this isn't totally irregular. Amen, ete, san, that's irregular. Amen, that's pretty common. That is common.
5 minutes.
Huh?
Okay.
Somebody
Sorry,
talking?
that's me. Somebody chatting in
Oh.
the background.
Okay. Ace and in, okay, so you're just gonna have to memorize that, but that is the imperfect indicative. All right, now, this is fun, getting into some lexical stuff. Which case gives us the direct object? Somebody tell me.
Accusative.
Accusative, that's right. Which case is the indirect object?
Dative.
Yeah, dative.
Good. However, there are some words, okay? There are some words that take the direct object in a different case. They will take them in the genitive or the dative case. Now, in these cases, you do not translate the genitive with of or from, and you do not translate the dative with to or for, okay? So this is counterintuitive, but let me give you an example. Well, let's see here. How do you know? That's my question. How do you know? How do you know which one takes which? Well, once again, it is just getting familiar with the lexicon. So for example, let me switch out of here real quick. I've made a copy of the an entry in a lexicon, and I put it here for you. Can I see here? All right. So here is the entry for akuo. Okay, I hear. Now that is the present active indicative first person singular lexical form that we are familiar with. All right. But I want you to notice, and I'm not going to give you a full lesson on the how to read a lexicon. Okay, but entry number 1, literally of sense perception, and then notice they're going to go through different sub examples. Okay, A, B. Now I'm flipping the page here. And then there's sub examples, and then big letter B. Now watch this. Hear something from someone, and then the gamma, third example, followed by a thing as an object in the genitive. There's your key right there. It's telling you that a direct object is going to be in the genitive, or here listen to with genitive of the person and a participle. Okay, and let's see if there's another example. Yep. Let's see here. Legal, to give someone a hearing. Okay. 3, learn or be informed about something. Okay, A example, and then B example with the genitive of the person. All right, so my only point in showing this is that it's not like you're going to know intuitively that a particular verb uses the genitive or the dative for the direct object. You're just going to have to learn over time. But one way to do it is if you're looking at a sentence and it has a subject, but it doesn't have a direct object, but it doesn't make sense if the sentence doesn't have a direct object, and yet you see a genitive case or a dative case, then you can just kind of by process of elimination say, well, look, if this sentence is going to make sense, this verb has to have a direct object, and there is no accusative, so it must be one of those verbs that takes the direct object in the genitive or the dative. Does that make sense? So that's one way you can just kind of muscle or power through it. All right. Let's see here. All right. So kuo and arco, krateo, plerao, all take the direct object in the genitive. You don't need to write this down. Okay, akusin tes phones. Somebody, let's see here. Benedict, can you translate for me?
Akusu Saint Taste Phones. He hears his voice.
Usin. What's usin? Oas a omenete usin.
Ace a amen ete usin. Third person plural.
Yeah, they hear. They
hear his voice.
The voice.
The voice.
Okay, now notice this is in the what case is that in?
That is in the. That's in the nominative case.
Is it?
I'm guessing no from the tone of your voice.
This is feminine,
Taste for
right?
nice.
Taste. I mean, here's the definite article right here. Is that a nominative definite article?
No.
In the feminine declension, what's the nominative feminine, the nominative singular feminine article?
Hey.
Hey, yes. And then what's the genitive? Taste.
Taste. Yeah.
This is the genitive. Okay. All right.
I should have guessed that from the title at the top of the screen.
Yeah, that's okay. So this would be, let's see, let's have David Bain. Can you read this?
Kratesen tes kairos altes.
Good job. Now, I don't know if you have all these vocabularies. I think you do. Can you translate that?
I do not recognize the first or third word.
Okay, that's okay. He grasped the hand of her. Yeah, you don't know this one. This is okay, so the hand is in the genitive, okay? Here's another one. Eplerunta karas. They were filled with joy. They were filled with joy. This is in the genitive. Direct object. All right, dative direct object. These words, akalufeo, apokrinomai, pistuo, and proskuneo are words that take the direct object in the dative. Akaluthusin auto. They are following him. Okay. Look, there's the dative. There's your little your iota subscript, which is a dead giveaway that it is a dative. Apokrinitai, autois. He answers them. Okay. U pistueto, pistuete moi. You do not believe me. You do not, plural, believe me. Prosekune auto. There's the dative right here. He was worshiping him. All right, so that's just the basic idea. Don't be confused if you can't find a direct object, but you still have a genitive or a dative case. More than likely, that genitive or dative case is the direct object, and it's because that verb, if you look it up in the lexicon, says that it takes the direct object in the genitive or the dative. All right, let's look at vocabulary. Apa,
Apa.
okay, from or away from. This is a preposition. And we're going to be looking at prepositions next. But for now, what you need to know is that prepositions, there are some prepositions that mean different things in different cases. So this preposition means from or away from in the genitive, okay? Dia, or excuse me, dia.
Yeah.
It means through or because of, through in the genitive and because of in the accusative, okay? Through in the genitive, because of in the accusative. Ace,
Ace.
into, among, or for in the accusative, where we get the word eisegesis. I'm sure you've told many jokes about eisegesis. I can't help but tell this one. I think it was Benny Hinn says, you know, people always accusing me of eisegesis, and like that's a bad thing. Well, the problem is I do engage in eisegesis. I see Jesus here. I see Jesus there. So anyways, this is a stupid joke about eisegesis. All right, ek.
Ek.
From or out of in the genitive. Okay, exhale, exegesis. By the way, this is the first part of the morpheme of the word ecclesia. Okay, called out ones or ones called out from. Some people debate whether that's really what it means, but I still think it's a good definition. In,
In.
on, at, by, or with in the dative. Epi,
Epi.
on, upon, or over in the genitive, on, upon, at, or in the dative, on, upon, to, or for in the accusative, where we get epigraph, epi, upon. Kata,
Kata.
down or against in the genitive, according to in the accusative. If you look at the names of the Gospels in the Greek New Testament, it'll start with kata, okay? It'll say according to Matthew, according to Mark, according to John. So just to give a connection there. Mata,
Mata.
right? With, among in the genitive, after in the accusative. By the way, we get metaphysics, okay? Because you have physics, and then after or beyond physics, you talk about like spiritual, invisible things, if you will, concepts, ideas. That's metaphysics. Para, from in the genitive, with in the dative, beside, on, or at in the accusative. And peri, about or concerning in the genitive, and around in the accusative.
I have a question. Excuse me.
Yeah.
When it comes to prepositions like epi, and let's say you ask us, you know, that's a vocabulary word in a quiz. How many of those do we have to put in? Like if you say epi in the genitive, do I have to, you know, write all three, or is there?
If you get one, that's fine. I don't care. You know, I mean, you know, so look, like in the accusative, so in the genitive, dative, and accusative, it's pretty much the same. It's on and upon, on and upon, on and upon, right? But what distinguishes it? Well, epi in the genitive is over, epi in the dative is at or in, and then epi in the accusative is, let's say, 2 or 4. But if you get one, I'm going to give you the point. So
Okay.
The thing is like when you look at these things, like again, I used to have people tell me like, well, if you want to get vocabulary down, you just really got to do your flashcards. And it's true, you got to do your flashcards, but flashcards have limitations. When you're doing flashcards for prepositions, you don't have a context, right? And so reading through the text is really what's going to solidify all the work that your flashcards do. Because reading the text is closing the hood and taking it for a spin, and you're actually putting it into practice. And when you do, I'd say 8 times out of 10, by context, you're going to be able to figure out how that preposition is working. You're going to be able to put one of these glosses to it, and it's going to make sense. By the way, I use the word gloss. Gloss is basically a definition that we give, or a rough equivalent or translation. And when you look at lexicons, they give quote unquote glosses. Don't slavishly follow glosses. Glosses are just an idea. There's something to grab onto. But, you know, the English language is so robust that there's a lot of synonyms that you could use for any given gloss. So just keep that in mind. All right. Pros.
Cross.
To or toward in the accusative. Prosthesis. Soon.
Soon.
With in the dative. Syntax, when words are with one another, you could say this is also where we get synagogue, with others, I guess you could say. Huper,
Pair.
for or on behalf of in the genitive, above or beyond in the accusative. Hyper, critical, hyper, active. Hupa, by in the genitive, under or below in the accusative. Hypotaxis or hypothesis. Enopion.
Enopion.
Enopion, before or in the presence of. All right, guys, any questions on vocab? Let's get to the good stuff now, okay? Let's turn in your textbooks to page 75. Page 75. We're going to look at some exercises. All right, let's look at parsing. Let's look at parsing. Why don't we have Benedict, you take number 1. I want you to read it and then I want you to parse it for me, okay?
Genocene. Or Genocene. And
Genocene.
Genocene, present.
Well, I'm sorry, what's the lexical form?
Geno.
No, try again. It's a contract verb.
Geno.
Genao.
Genao. Genao. Lexical form.
Yes.
The number. Yeah, present. I think.
Yes, present.
Present. If it's contracted, then it's probably a imperfect. No, sorry, I'm talking nonsense. I'm afraid that's as far as I'm going to get.
Okay, so it's a present. You're right. It's a present. It's an active. Present active. Indicative. That's all we've studied so far. But you can figure out that personal ending, right? Seen.
Seen.
Tell me your personal endings for your present active.
Present active indicative. Yeah. O, ace, a, men.
Amen.
Amen. Ete, ois.
Usine.
Usi.
Usine. Well, that's here, usine. And the reason you see a circumflex over the omega is because contraction has taken place, right?
Yeah.
So think about it. Here, let's just, this is
That's
fun.
obviously-
We'll look at it.
Third person plural, isn't it?
Yes, it is a third person plural. All right, so here we go. You have, there's your lexical form right there, okay? So then I have gan, okay, plus seen, right? So I have an alpha plus an all right? And that's going to go into an omega and a circumflex over the omega to indicate that there was a contraction. Does that make sense?
Yes. It does. Now you've explained it.
All right, any questions about that? All right, let's look at number 2. Let's have Samuel take number 2.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
Lexical form amis. And this is the, well, it's
Wait, I'm sorry. What's the lexical form?
ami.
Amy, good. Amy, good.
Ami. Okay. And present. Nope, sorry, imperfect.
Good, good.
Active indicative, and it's the first person plural.
Good.
Means we were.
We were. Very good. Very good. All right, number 3. Let's have David Bain take that one.
Aeroton.
Mm-hmm.
It'll take me just a second to figure this out. I know it's a second. I know it's a second person plural.
Good.
Aero. That's not a word. Aero. That's not a word. I don't know what the stem is.
You mean the lexical form is erotao. 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 Okay. So what's going on here? Let's talk about contraction here for a second. What's going on here? So we have, here's the lexical form right here. Okay. See that? This is your inflected form. So basically what happened is we went to put an epsilon on front because this is an imperfect, right? So this is your augment. Epsilon plus epsilon went to an eta. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Here, let's go back to, let me find this real quick. We'll find this in our book so you can make the connection.
73.
73, yeah. Where's the augment though? We talked about the augment.
If you mean the lengthening and shortening, that was chapter 1.
Okay, it's page 64. Page 64. Page 64, morphology, augment. Okay, he gives some examples here. Epsilon goes to eta when you have eta plus eta. Okay, so erkamai, and then we add the erkamai, and then we add the augment. Epsilon plus epsilon goes to eta. Does that make sense? So that's what happened here. Epsilon plus epsilon eta, and you have a rho tone. Okay, so this is basically I answer or ask, excuse me, ask. All right, now can you parse this? Can you conjugate this?
I know it's second person plural, but I don't know for sure if it's,
What are our imperfect endings? Let's start there. Why don't you tell them to me?
okay, that's what's throwing me. I haven't memorized those yet. Yeah, I don't have that. Imperfect or
Okay.
perfect?
Imperfect.
Yeah, I don't have that memorized yet.
All right. So we've got erotao. Is my lexical form, right? But the word we're looking at is, put that right here, is a row tone. All right. So we've already figured out what happened here. This is augment plus epsilon in the beginning of the word yields eta. So we figured that out. But then we've got own. Now that's interesting. What could have happened? We had alpha, see up here, alpha, okay? Because take this off, okay, that gives you lexical form. So this is the stem, erota. So we have, what's going on here? Alpha plus something equals own. Which one of these would fit?
The third person singular. If not that, then the first singular, third plural.
That's right. First singular and third plural, okay? Plus O would be omega. Alpha plus omicron equals omega. So it'd be own. So this could be, this is the imperfect, okay? The imperfect, active indicative, and it could be either the first person singular or the third person plural. So you could say something like, I was asking, I was in the process of asking, or they were asking, okay? All right, good. Let's go, Julius, take number 3. No, take number 4.
Ekaluthun. Let's see. I'm looking at the vocab.
It's okay.
I'm not finding it.
All right, so this comes from akalutheo. Okay. All right, but the form is a kaluthun. Kaluthun. All right, so what's happening right here? Excuse me, what's happening right here? Here's your augment.
yeah.
Here's your augment, because this is an imperfect. So we're putting the augment, and epsilon plus alpha yields eta. That's where we get that, okay? But then we've got, I want you to come up here, you take this off, and here's your stem, if you will. So it ends with a epsilon. So this is a contract verb. So you have epsilon, come down here, epsilon plus something equals un. What could it be?
Iota? No.
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 What are your endings? Remember your endings?
Anes A, amenete usi. On at the end. I'm sorry, I was just a little thrown off because I can't find the vocab word. So I'm like, is that vocab word in the last chapter in this chapter?
Is it not in there?
Yeah, I'm just confused. Like that really threw me off.
I don't know. I'd have to look in the back. Let's just work on the morphology here.
Yeah.
So this is on.
Okay.
Okay. Epsilon plus omicron is un. So this is the first singular or the third plural.
Okay.
Right. So this would be something like I was following or they were following. All right. I'll tell you what. We've got just a few minutes. Let's go to a previous chapter. Let's go to let's go to page 68. And let's have Samuel take number 9. I want you to try to translate that.
Kai elambanon numa hagi.
No, number 9. I'm sorry, number 9.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Kai ebaptizondo zonta
Zonta, good.
en to Jordane.
Okay. So Iordanen is Jordan. Just, I don't think you've had that that vocabulary word.
And I have the augment. I have anta. That's I think this is imperfect, third person plural, and they were baptizing in the Jordan.
Good. So this is an imperfect mediopassive indicative, third person plural. That's exactly right. Good job. Okay, let's go with Benedict. Can you read number 10?
Yeah. Ude ga oi adeg foi. Sorry, adelphoi.
Adelphoi.
Utu epistuon, eis auton Auton.
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 Auton, good.
Auton.
All right. How would you render that?
So the first one's not even.
Good.
Great translation. Adelphoi.
Okay, so
Not-
out to you see is his. So hoi adelphoi, you know what that is, right?
Yeah. His brother.
Good.
His brothers.
His brothers. So
brothers.
not even his brothers. What?
Epistion. Believed in him.
Well, look at that epsilon augment. That means that you're in the imperfect, right?
Yeah, were believing, believed. Yeah, believed is not even his brothers believed in it.
So in
Okay.
general, the imperfect is more of the progressive, right? So it's more as the action is in play. So it would be not even his brothers were believing in him. The aorist is more of the believed, the bound. This is more of the unbound. Okay. All right, guys, that's good for today. I think that's quite enough. So listen, go through these exercises, practice it, get it down. And look, I mean, this is one of those things where you're just going to have to memorize the paradigms. You got to memorize the paradigms. What I recommend that you do, you take a legal pad and you set a timer for 20 minutes and you write down each paradigm for 20 minutes until the timer goes off. And then it's going to be emblazoned in your mind. All right. And then when you start seeing these weird forms, these contract forms, you're going to know what's going on. You're going to be able to see behind the scenes because you already have the paradigm in your head. You connect it to the third person plural or the first person singular. And then you say, oh, well, this one plus that one equals the omega, or this one plus that one equals the omicron iota, whatever the case may be. All right. Any questions? All right, I will try to get those. Yes, somebody have a question?
I last week, kind of giving, at least for me, an idea of what the quiz was going to be like, helped in terms of next week.
Yeah, good. That's a fair question. That's a fair question. So what I may do for chapter 7 is, if you go to page 73, down there at the bottom, present, active, indicative, all those different forms, and then it spills over into page 74. I might give you one of these and ask you to parse it and then tell me like to break it down. So what two vowels came together to form this contract vowel? So for example, on page 73, the first person singular of agapo, okay? How did that happen? Well, because the lexical form is agapao, right? Agapao. Agapao is alpha, all right, plus basically something. What I want you to tell me what it is that turned into an omega. Here's another example. The second singular poies. Okay, poi epsilon plus epsilon sigma. Okay, an epsilon and an epsilon. Oh, excuse me. It would be epsilon iota sigma. So you have epsilon plus epsilon iota. That is the rule of redundancy. So one drops out and you have ace, and then you have the circumflex over it. So I might do one of those. And then as far as vocab, you'll be responsible for vocab. And then in chapter 6, the imperfect, I will definitely ask you to give me on page 63, the imperfect active indicative paradigm. Eluan, elues, eluane, eluamen, eluete, eluan, and the imperfect mediopassive indicative, amen, u, eta, ametha, este, anta. You will definitely be asked to reproduce those. And then on page 62, make sure that you know these 3 categories of the imperfect, the progressive, the inceptive, and the iterative. If you guys have that and all your vocab and everything that went before, you're going to be fine. Did that help?
Yeah, no, it helps. It helps relieve expectations that can be placed upon oneself.
Good, good. You know exactly what to study. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much. Study hard, and Lord willing, we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.